Update. The second portion of this video that you will hear was already recorded. Now new information comes out suggesting that Andy Ruiz has instead changed his mind. Initially, it was reported Andy Ruiz Jr. would fight TYRONE SPONG on TRILLER, and Luis Ortiz had some comments to say as a result, which you will hear in the second portion of this video. Now sources are stating from ESPN that Andy Ruiz has come to his senses, and instead the SPONG had issues being made, and Andy Ruiz will instead fight Luis King Kong Ortiz after all. Andy Ruiz Jr. will fight Luis King Kong Ortiz in a PBC heavyweight bout late summer, sources tell Mike Coppinger of ESPN. Ruiz's TRILLER Fight Club bout against TYRONE SPONG on July 16th was announced on Wednesday will not proceed as planned. My job is to give you guys reliable, accurate information, and sometimes the information changes, which is why I'm doing this update so you guys have it. But this is what Luis Ortiz had to say, which prompted Andy Ruiz Jr. to possibly change his mind. That plus negotiating, you know, maybe the money didn't come through or whatever other reasons canceled Ruiz versus SPONG. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Enjoy the video. Wow. Andy Ruiz accused of ducking Luis Ortiz. Luis Ortiz goes in, calls Andy Ruiz Jr. a coward after his next fight is announced. I'll talk about that in this video. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. So to give you guys the news, Andy Ruiz Jr., his next fight is going to be on TRILLER. Who is he fighting? TYRONE SPONG. Now, TYRONE SPONG is not really a name that many boxing fans are familiar with. He's a kickboxer who does some boxing, and the only time I can think of maybe in a semi-high profile fight, or more so with a name that boxing fans can be familiar with that he's been linked outside of the Andy Ruiz fight, is Alexander Usyk. He was supposed to fight Alexander Usyk, and they said he failed the test. He denies failing the test, but nonetheless, his fight was canceled, and he never got to fight Usyk. Usyk went on to fight Chaz Tablespoon. Now, fast forward to the future, Andy Ruiz, it was just announced he's going to be fighting in Mexico City, and he's going to be fighting against TYRONE SPONG, who, again, he's actually coming off a loss, too, in the MMA world, I believe, from this year. So, Luis Ortiz, he's had enough, and this is what he had to say. He is a coward along the line. This is how Ortiz described Ruiz's decision to fight a kickboxer. Quote, Andy Ruiz, he could have chosen a real boxer, a renowned rival. He knew how much I wanted to face him, but he decided to take an easy route against a kickboxer, someone he will dominate without many problems. I repeat, Andy Ruiz Jr. is a coward. He's a coward. So, very strong words for the former Mexican champion, Andy Ruiz. Luis Ortiz lets it rip. Now, this is coming from an interview that he did with Jorge. Link will be in the description. So, Ortiz is not feeling Ruiz's decision. Ruiz is 32, and he beat Anthony Joshua. That was his claim to fame and really his biggest win in performance. He came up short in another title fight against Joseph Parker, and his last fight was against Chris Arreola, who's about 40 years old, on the backside of his career. And speaking of backside, Chris Arreola was able to drop him and seemingly get Andy Ruiz in a lot of trouble early in that fight, although Ruiz was able to compose himself, gather himself, and come out with a victory in that fight. So the article says a world kickboxing champion, SPONG, who currently trains in South Florida, returns to the ring after a knockout in the second round, which is what I just told you, against Jason Medina in Mexico. 11 of his 13 knockouts have occurred in the first 2 rounds of his 14 victories. Quote, for a while, Ruiz made fans believe that it was possible to fight with me, but we already see the way he took. He once said he could fight with me and accepted a tune-up fight. Now comes with something worse than the tune-up. There comes a fight that does not interest anyone and that is of no use in his career as a boxer. Wow. So Luis Ortiz is going in. He's going in. He says, I'm afraid that this fight that the fanatics and I love so much is never going to take place. Andy Ruiz, he has played with everyone, but at the moment of truth, he accepts these fights that are useless. I think he has lost the hunger to really fight, to have meaningful fights, because Andy Ruiz, he's a coward. Man, this man done called him a coward several times, and that's a direct quote, link in the description. What are my thoughts? Well, for starters, I'm not going to call somebody out his name, you know, Andy Ruiz, former champion, but it is very disappointing. Nobody's asking for Ruiz versus SPONG. I have no idea why he's even fighting on TRILLER as opposed to PBC. I thought he had a situation with PBC. And to make matters worse, to what Luis Ortiz is saying is the mere fact that just, I want to say a month ago, Andy Ruiz Jr. took to his social media and posted this cool graphic of him and Luis King Kong Ortiz and got people excited. And he posed the question, something to the effect of, who do y'all want to see me fight next? So me, in my mind, I know for a fact this is I'm not going to reveal my source, but based on sources, I know that Premier Boxing Champions was highly interested in making this fight, be it Showtime or Fox. I don't know those details, but they wanted to make this fight. For whatever reason, Andy Ruiz Jr., off of the Areola performance, is now fighting a kickboxer. Very, very disappointing. Now, the other thing that's disappointing is the kickboxer you faced is coming off of a knockout loss, right? So it's not even like like when Floyd Mayweather, which old media hated on, when he fought Conor McGregor. I don't know what you're thinking. Who the fuck is that? Shut your fucking mouth, mate. You'll do none. When Floyd fought Conor McGregor, Conor was coming off, I believe, the Jose Aldo win, which is one of the craziest 13-second type of knockouts in the UFC, probably history. You know what I'm saying? In terms of knockouts in high-profile UFC fights with known people. Jose Aldo's a respected guy. So at least Mayweather was fighting his MMA fighter. And Floyd's in a whole different boat because Floyd had already given you 49 fights and 22 plus years of illustrious career, versus Andy Ruiz is coming off of fighting Chris Areola. And that fight too was, and I ordered that fight for the record because I like Andy Ruiz, but that fight too was another fight that wasn't really desired. People wanted to see Ruiz go straight in with Luis Ortiz. Now, I respect Luis Ortiz and I respect Cuban fighters, and this is what I got to say about Luis King Kong Ortiz. People can say what they want. I've seen so many memes and comments made about Luis King Kong Ortiz's age, and he's lying about his age, and he was born in 1908 and he fought Jack Johnson and sparred Jack Johnson. You know, all these old people memes and jokes that he's geriatrics. But guess what? Nobody seems to step up and fight this man. I've seen comments stating that, oh, he got old overnight, he looked vulnerable versus Charles Martin. But I repeat, people outside of Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, oh my God, to this day, people aren't stepping up to this day outside of Wilder. Wilder's the only one I'm going to give credit for, because the other people, well, actually, there's other people in the past like Brian Jennings and stuff like that. But a lot of guys, Wilder is the guy in recent memory who had something to lose major. I mean, the man Wilder was about to forego a Tyson Fury payday if he would have got knocked out in the Luis Ortiz fight. And he was losing the fight. I was there live in Las Vegas. So, you know what I mean? He was risking it all to fight this man that he had already knocked out and been hurt in round 7. He was badly hurt and in bad shape for a period of time, and he had to recuperate. So he for whatever reason, Wilder's crazy enough to want to do that again because he has this insane belief in his skills and his power and whatnot. But then you got guys like Andy Ruiz, and we know for a fact PBC, or I know for a fact PBC wanted the fight, and it was seemingly after the Joshua performance, he switched and went to Canelo's gym, Eddie Reynoso, which that's a separate question. I don't even know if he's with Eddie Reynoso, because people are talking about Ryan Garcia leaving Canelo's gym and he wasn't in the gym. Ryan wasn't disciplined. I don't even, Oscar Valdez, I've seen a lot of clips of him. I never seen Andy Ruiz in them clips too. I see Oscar and Canelo and Eddie Reynoso and other people, but I don't even know what his situation is with it. But I'm sure that will be revealed along the way. But again, the whole concept is this. Andy Ruiz, his last fight was considered a tune-up, not really desired fight, but that's what it was. And it was supposed to crescendo and build up to Luis Ortiz. People keep saying he looked vulnerable versus Charles Martin. He's an old man. But why didn't Anthony Joshua, who was with Rematch Room and Eddie Hearn, they had Luis Ortiz at a point in time. They were all on the same ship. No one fought him. Dillian White, same thing. Dillian White bemoaned about like getting big opportunities and 100 days and all this stuff, but they never made that fight. But instead, he would fight guys like Joseph Parker and everybody else. So the point I'm making is Luis Ortiz is a boogeyman still. Outside of Wilder, people keep saying what he is and ain't and how old he is, but they don't want to get in the ring with him. And, you know, there's really no justification for Andy Ruiz to fight on Triller against a guy coming off of a knockout loss whose career is not, you know, in boxing. And then you have old media and a lot of the racist fans, they're going to sweep this under the rug and act like he's not fighting a kickboxer coming off of a loss and act like, oh, but he's good and he has power. I mean, how do we know he's good at boxing? You could be good at MMA and not be that great at boxing. You know what I mean? But a lot of the same racist fans, they'll say, oh, who wants to see Gervonta Davis and Rolly? Rolly's not 40 years old. Rolly is bigger than Tank. Rolly doesn't like Tank. You know, they don't get along. But again, old media will chastise and criticize that fight, but they won't say anything to Andy Ruiz. We know what time it is. Let me know what you guys think. Luis Ortiz calls Andy Ruiz a coward. I will keep you guys updated. Hopefully Ortiz gets another big look because he's certainly avoided. Again, people say what they want, but those are the facts. Subscribe to the channel because I am the best in the business. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe to this video. Ego signing off. The future is now. The Hibernation 5s by Kenichi Bear. Hybrid gaming and lifestyle headphones. Out of the box, you can connect to any console or PC. Bluetooth ready with a low latency USB adapter, color RGB, and extreme bass mode. The Hibernation 5s adjust to you. Whether you need a gaming, travel, gym, or lifestyle headphones, the Hibernations got you covered. The new Hibernation 5s, link in the description. Customize the way you hear the world. Welcome to the nation.